Tower of God has a very complex story. There are many subplots that are intertwined with the main plot, many plots left untold that we tend to forget because some of them are only reminded through short dialogues. But there are also plots, or rather arcs, that SIU itself has teased, either through its notes or just implicitly through the story. So I thought that making a video that would serve as a reminder, that would summarize all the ongoing storylines, would be a good thing now that Tower of God is back. So that's what we'll see today. Whether you just want a reminder for the recovery, or you want a full video to know the least little storyline that you would have missed, you are in the right place. Hi, it's Lilian, and today we're going to take a look at all the ongoing and upcoming storylines in Tower of God. We are currently in the middle of the nest, but it's pretty hard to predict what's going to happen after this arc right now. All we know is that according to the narrator, this battle will be the trigger for a long war in the tower. However, as for the ongoing or upcoming plots, or simply the mysteries that punctuate the plot, it's going to get complicated because it's a huge mess. Between the large number of subplots that are intertwined with the main plot, which is already quite complex, and the lore elements that we don't know if they will be developed or not, it's quite difficult to find your way around, and trying to link everything together requires a lot of theorizing, which is not the purpose of this video. So I'll try to simply list the elements of the plots that were left unfinished, and try not to forget any of them. To begin with, in the last chapter of Season 2, Rachel brings back to Gustang 3 objects. One of Jahad's rings that holds half of the key to the 135th floor, Urek's silver bracelet that limited him to 5% of his power in the Floor of Death in addition to hiding his presence, and Jahad's bracelet that is said to be a key that contains the power to beat Jahad. Since she brought all this back to him, Gustang said that he would grant Rachel 3 wishes. What are these 3 wishes and how will they impact Rachel in the plot? While we are talking about Rachel, there is also the whole plot of Emily that is still left hanging. Indeed, there are still many mysteries surrounding her, and since she seems to be a weapon capable of preventing the guides from predicting the future as well as the irregulars, and that she is very effective in manipulating the masses, she is undoubtedly a very powerful weapon that will be of crucial interest in the future, especially since Rachel seems to be able to control her. Also, it is still unclear what would happen if Emily, which is a living ignition weapon, were to ignite. And there is still a mystery. We don't know who wrote to Emily that Bam was alive. After the last station arc, Hayuri Jahad was arrested for helping Bam to escape, which created tensions with the Ha family. These tensions were also heightened with the capture of Ha Jinsong, who, even though he is a FUG criminal in their eyes, is still someone who knew the heads of the 10 great families and Jahad personally. It is therefore not known what will happen to the Ha family, what its position will be in the coming conflicts, etc., especially since this same family is already divided by its internal conflict between the 2 twin sons of Ha Yurin, who are fighting for power. And speaking of Yuri, we still don't know what the famous bet she made with Mashani consists of, putting at stake her Green April and Mashani's Yellow May. However, this bet could very likely have a link with what Mashani is preparing with his alliance with the princesses of Jahad Lilial, Shilial and Maria, as well as it could be linked to the conflict between the princesses Hendo Lok Gladmary and Ariye Rose. And in general, all this could be a preparation for what will surely be a very big arc that SIU has teased for a long time, that of the princesses of Jahad. Indeed, he said in the note of chapter 110 of season 2 that he had planned an arc on the princesses of Jahad, but that it will arrive later than expected. In the same note, he said that there would also be an arc about another battle at the workshop. Since we know that there are 7 workshop headquarters in the tower, it is also likely that there will be several arcs centered around the workshop, which would not be surprising given the influence it has on the whole tower. Also, there is still a lot of mystery surrounding the workshop. There are many members we know from the non-canon lore, such as Maxeth, its creator, Flux, its first disciple, and one of the fathers of the workshop, Max, Mai, Mad and May, the 4 great teachers. Perhaps they will have a development later on. There is also the blacksmith Ashuledwaru, who seems to be very important, especially because he is the creator of the weapons of the 13-month series. Moreover, we also know that according to Maxeth, the workshop also exists in the outside world, and that it was present in the tower long before Jahad's arrival. Maxeth is therefore a being who is both older than Jahad and his companions, but who also seems to have knowledge about the outside world, which could make him one of the most important characters in Tower of God. I refer you to my lore video on the workshop for more details. There is also the plot of the Mad Dogs of Yama. We know that Varagav is not affected by Yasracha's power, and we don't have an explanation for that yet. We also don't know why they always seem to be accompanied by their angel, Ron May for Varagavan Angel, or Ragel of his real name for Bulsa Elliot. We don't know from which of the 10 great families Angel comes. We don't know either the identity of the 3rd Mad Dog. Their creation by the technique of blood fusion is also very mysterious. We know from non-canon lore that there are not many people who know how to perform blood fusion, and because its practice is absolutely forbidden in the tower, even those who do know how to do it have mostly been murdered or disappeared. And speaking of Yama, we still don't know who the fifth of the clan is, but we do know that he is not even a member of the dog race, since Dung Dung tells us that all the leaders of the clan are members of the dog race except for one, and that all the other members we have seen so far were indeed of the dog race. Speaking of race, we must not forget one of the somewhat discreet subplots that concerns Jiaxia's race. Whether it's Jiaxia or the other girl from her clan that we saw in a test, they all seem to be obsessed with money in order to save the future of their clan. Maybe we'll also have a storyline about the race of Paracule and Pinnacle, who knows? When will we have a backstory about Paracule's dark and tortured past? Yeah, I admit it's a troll, but who knows? We can also expect to see more details about the races cursed by Jahad, like Hayura's father, whose curse was that the chances of his children being stillborn were very high. We know that among the other curses, there is the fact that a body ends up with the characteristics of both a male and a female, making it sterile, which reminds us a lot of aka Williams. And finally, there is the curse that seals the original powers of the individual. This is pure speculation, but it could be linked to Rak, since the shadow we see in this description looks like him, and he probably has hidden powers buried in him since he is a direct descendant of the natives ones. And speaking of the natives ones, this is also an intrigue that should be developed later, since Rak is one of their descendants. They are all supposed to have been killed by Jahad, but nevertheless, Rak is still alive. So a future plot concerning both the natives ones and Rak's past are quite likely. Moreover, the natives ones could be linked to the ancient monsters as well, the famous monsters present in the body of Evankel or Kel Helm. We know almost nothing about them either, we just know that their goal is to survive at all costs, and even they don't know why, and that Rak seemed to react to the flames of Evankel's ancient monster. There is the very discreetly brought plot of the 7 sacred swords of the Hong. Remember, in season 1, there was a swordsman named Hong Chunhua who had a sword named Narumada. Well, 150 chapters later, we came across a member of the same village, Hong Danhua, who had another sword, Krishna. That's when we learned that this sword and Hong Chunhua's sword were 2 of the 7 sacred swords of their village. They were normal swords that belonged to 7 warriors who defeated a monster that was terrorizing their village. They then sealed the monster in these 7 swords, and so these became ignition swords. They were then passed down from generation to generation in that village. SIU said in the note of chapter 137 of season 2 that the hardcore story behind this place will be told later, and that a little hint was that the men of this village go crazy for women, hence Hong Danhua's attachment to Hayura and Hong Chunhua's attachment to Sunhu Nare. Moreover, Narumada and Krishna are the names of 2 of the 7 most important rivers in India, so we can guess the names of the other 5: Ganga, Yamuna, Sarasvati, Godavari and Kaveri. As for their location, we don't know where Hong Chunhua is, but thanks to a question answer from SIU, we know that he climbs the tower next to Sunhu Nare, who, on his side, owns Manbarondena, the briefcase that Kun stole from the treasures of his father, Kun Idan. The latter offered it to her in exchange for her cooperation during the test of the administrator of the 2nd floor. By the way, it is not known if Kun stole other objects than Manbarondena from his father's trunk before entering the tower. As for Hong Danhua, he is still taken hostage with Yon Ewa by what seems to be the famous captain, after Yul and Kel beat them. We might also get some development about the 5 flower kingdoms, the mechanical kingdom, and maybe other kingdoms, since Char was talking to Bam about them. And speaking of Char, maybe we will know more about the first men from whom he is descended. Maybe we'll also learn more about his master, him and Doan. And while we're on the subject of characters, there are a lot of characters whose backstories need to be developed or who have a plot of their own. I'm thinking of Shibisu, who is climbing the tower because he promised it to a friend. According to information from the SIU blog, Gossip as he says, it is partly because Anak knows a little about his past that she agreed to climb the tower with him. In fact, in that same blog post, we learned that Ran had a fight with Masheni when he was young before he came out of the tower. She said he would be a good warrior, and he, for his part, decided that killing her would be his ultimate goal if he became a ranker. There's also Mule Love's past that we just learned about, so we know that Augustus will give him the name of the FUG member who killed his parents after the Nest arc. I don't know if this will be a very exploited plot, but you never know. Anyway, Mule Love is the best. As for Endorsi's past, we know more or less what it is, but it still remains a mystery. We don't know what his real name is. However, we know that Bam knows this name. As for Anak's past, there are still unanswered questions like who took her to hide her somewhere and who seems to be a silver dwarf. Perhaps it was the royal guide assigned to the real Anak, since she was a princess of Jahad. And what is the identity of the princess of Jahad who killed the real Anak? Will Anak take revenge on Lopobia Ren? Is she herself from the Lopobia family in the first place? There are still many mysteries. As for Aguero's past, we have already had a glimpse of it, but there are still some shadows since SIU said in the 41st chapter of Season 1 that it would be revealed gradually as the story progresses. Is his mother still alive? What was the nature of his relationship with Maria? What will it be like when they meet again? And by the way, since we're talking about the Kuns, we know that SIU has long teased an arc centered on the Kun family that seems to be very important. We know that Aguero has relationships with very high-ranking members of his family. We also saw an unknown member of the Kun family helping him by stopping the Hell Train, which requires great power and therefore does not come from just anyone. It is also known that there is a special Kun Edan test where whoever passes it becomes the head of the Kun family, but no one has ever come out of this test alive. In short, all these elements seem to lead to an arc about the Kun family and in which Aguero will have to try to achieve his main goal, being the head of the Kun family. Did Chung Blarod survive in the Nest arc? We know that Quaitro had the white celestial mirror of Aguero, so maybe he used it in some way, especially since we only know one of the 3 functions of the white celestial mirror. The other 2 are unknown, and would be rather dangerous according to Aguero. We don't know either what is the purpose of Jaina Repalista Jahad, the only princess of Jahad who is not a regular. We know she's up to something since she seems to know a lot of things. The baby Zijena that she asked Yuri to bring back to her should be part of her plan. We know that she seems to be aware of the existence of the princes of the pleasure district since she says that it was time for them to appear, but also that she knows who the prince of Jahad is, or at least that she knows that one exists and that he will be back soon. It is also unclear how someone who is not even a regular or ranker, and who does not seem to be a member of the 10 great families, was able to obtain such an important item as the opera, the most powerful lighthouse in the tower, which exists in only 3 copies, and the other 2 of which have been entrusted to extremely important people. Flux, one of the 3 lords of the Jahad Empire, and Tuperit Peri, the head of the Tuperi family, one of the 10 great families. Perhaps the Jaina family is a very special family or a branch of one of the 10 great families. Besides, we can also wonder about Kun Masheni Jahad's involvement in all this, since she seems to be preparing something big on her side, and she strangely went to see Repalista just before Yuri in Chapter 0 of Season 2, before Repalista asks Yuri to go and get the baby Zijina back in exchange for the information she wants. Then there are all the plots concerning the 10 great families. They probably won't have an arc each except for some, but will be developed as the story progresses. We have already talked about the Kun family with the Kun arc that is planned for later, and we have also talked about the Ha family with the tensions caused by the capture of Jinsong and Yuri. We can add that we already know a lot about the Lopobia family. It is even the family that has been the most present during the plot, and given its loyalty to Jahad, we can expect to see it regularly throughout the story. There is the Tuperi family that we still haven't seen once since the beginning of Tower of God, whose name hasn't even been mentioned, and who is therefore very mysterious. There is the Ari family, which does not seem to have any particular role given its rather pacifist nature. The Ariye family, on the other hand, will most likely have a dedicated arc, since SIU hinted that this would be the case in the note in Chapter 27 of Season 3. It may take place on the 100th floor since that is where its leader, Ariye Hon, resides. And that is also the floor where Ariye Hon's special test takes place, that only Urek Mazino and Ariye Hagifurioni Jahad have managed to pass, according to the non-canon lore. The future development of White can also be linked to this. There is the Eurasia family with the branch of Fonsecal, which is rather interesting since we know that there is a plot about Fonsecal Irur, who says she has found the person, Bam, who could be the key to open the door of his dreams, as his uncle wishes. What can this dream be? Moreover, when we know the relationship between Pobidao Gostang and Eurasia Blossom, as well as the importance of Eurasia Enajahad, there is a chance that this family is also very important. Then there is the Hendolok family, to which the Princess of Jahad Gladmeri is related, but also Hansong Yu's past, and his connection with the head of this family, Bloodmadder. There is also the whole somewhat mysterious part about the curse of Bloodmadder's children, who, according to the non-canon law, are condemned to a very short life so that Bloodmadder keeps his immortality. One wonders why Bloodmadder was the only one denied immortality by the administrator of the 100th floor. There is also V who didn't get it, but that's because he knowingly refused it. There's the Yon family who has been a source of tension with their Wolhaiksong after Uruk stole the baby Zijena, but also the plot with Ehwa, who intends to take responsibility for her family's actions and do everything to correct them. If we look at the non-canon lore, we can also think about the mystery surrounding Yon Ilad and Yon Hana. Ilad being the woman who gives birth to all the members of the Yon family, and Hana being supposed to be a virgin. How come Hana's blood flows in the veins of every member of the Yon family? But anyway, it's non-canon, so there's no need to bother with that right now. And finally, there is the Po Bidao family. It is very mysterious and will surely be developed very soon since Gustang, its leader, declared war to Jahad by stealing his bracelet in the hidden floor. It remains to know all the unknown members that we see in the last chapter of Season 2, but also, according to the non-canon lore, the group of the Research Association created by Gustang, and maybe its link with the workshop. How much longer will she be able to live within Jahad's empire since he has given orders to exterminate the family in the 3 orders? When will she enter into open conflict? And above all, what plan does Gustang have in mind? He who seems to manipulate all the events in the shadows since the beginning of Season 2, and even before. Who is the guy he was talking to on the radio during the workshop battle? Who is the guy he was talking to at the end of the Floor of Death arc? How many masterminds are there in this whole fucking mess? Anyway, about the 10 great families, I refer you to the lore video about them for more details. Then, as for the Wolhaiksong, there will surely be an arc centered on them, probably on the 77th floor since that's where their HQ is. After all, Bam has the winged badge and Uruk told him that they will meet up there. Will Bam join them? Who will be the regular from Season 1 who will become an officer of Wolhaiksong? What role will Wolhaiksong play in the main plot? Will they take a stand? Will we learn more about the outside world when we see Uruk again? And most importantly, will the Wolhaiksong be able to figure out how to get out of the tower? You can check out the lore video on the Wolhaiksong for more info if you want. And yes, I'm not stopping the self-promotion, but these videos have to be good for something. Then there is the FUG. We still don't know its origin. We don't know almost anything about Loslek either, its leader and creator. There are the Slayers, Pefomamor Sito and Emort, about whom we know nothing, as well as all the other missing Slayers who could have a dedicated arc, or at least part of it. The same goes for the Elders. There's also the plot regarding the soul mixing ladle Madurako has in his possession, which he plans to use to revive someone. Will we learn more about the ancient Slayers? In general, the FUG will be developed throughout the plot, gradually. And again, I'll redirect you to my lore video on the FUG. As for the development of the lore, we may have more details, maybe an arc on the famous Cherry River, whose name has been mentioned several times since Season 3, either by Dalit with his new weapon, or Kulnisam Kai against Evankel. We may also wonder if Yulia, the female candidate for Princess of Jahad, who is the source of Reflejo's hatred for the 10 great families, has indeed become a princess, and from which great family she comes. Since we know that her family symbol is the same as the one on the 2nd floor, we will know at the same time which great family controlled the test floor before Evankel came to kill the governor. Maybe we'll also see the development of everything around wizards like Levi, because this kind of power is really broken. Otherwise, in terms of the non-canon lore, there are also some unanswered questions all over the place, like why Princess Heist Jahad refused one of the 13 months. One can also wonder if we will see later fights against the most powerful Shinho of the tower, like the Barracuda or the Killer Whale. Otherwise, a plot that seems to be very important but that many seem to have forgotten. It is about the Hockney painting, of which Ha-Yura has the last fragment. Hockney said that this painting was like his own soul, and he entered the tower with the sole purpose of searching for it. What part of the Floor of Death could this painting possibly represent? And speaking of which, SIU said in a note at the end of the Floor of Death arc that the story of the Floor of Death wasn't quite complete, which suggests that we might return to that floor later. And for that matter, it might be an opportunity to find out what the power of the Eye of the Great Disar is, since we were never shown it. But more importantly, it could tell us more about Bam and his past, which is a huge part of the plot. Since we know she was already crazy, how much truth is there in what Arlen Grace wrote in her pocket? What was she and V like? What are the missing parts of the story that Garam Jahad doesn't want to tell Bam, lest he can't handle it? How did Enna Jahad find Arlen's pocket so easily? Who is behind all this? What is Rachel's role in all this? How did she know Arlen Grace? What is her past? Will she succeed in seeing the starry sky she has wanted to see for so long? What is the significance of the fucking symbol of Jahad present in the cave of Bam? Also, speaking of Bam, one can always wonder about the mysteries that surround all his powers, whether it is those of the thorn or the meaning of the demon inside him, or that sort of sun inside him that seems to devour everything, and makes one think of the words of Arlen Grace, who referred to Bam as a monster born to curse the tower and devour everything. We can also wonder how Bam will evolve in the rest of the plot, and especially, will he be able not to become like Jahad? And speaking of Bam, there's one thing we mustn't forget. He still doesn't know that Prince and Akraptor are dead, nor that it's Rachel and White who killed them, since Wangnan ran away without telling him anything at the end of Season 2. And speaking of Wangnan, there is also a lot to say about him. First of all, there is the climb he will have to do with his group. Now that Horyang is awake, he will have to climb the tower from the 30th floor with Yogoseng. We will also have to see what his relationship with Kasana will be, and what they will do to change the tower on their scale. We can also wonder what will be the development of Miseng. What is the secret behind her berserk mode there? Who are her parents? Will she see them again, etc.? There is also the whole intrigue concerning the daughter of Akraptor. Indeed, Akraptor entered the tower partly because he wanted to find his daughter. The only clue concerning her is that she wears the same earring as him. We see this earring again in one of the members of the FUG team, which includes Apple and Michael. Also, we don't know from which of the 10 great families she comes, nor why she is from the FUG. Knowing that the group she belongs to is not allied with Bam, this could be a very interesting source of conflict. And then there is the mysterious plot regarding the sword that Wangnan retrieved at the end of the hidden floor. Wangnan must have promised the sword that he will kill someone in exchange for the power to save everyone on the hidden floor. Who is this person he will have to kill? What is this cruel fate to which Jihad refers, and which the paneling seems to tell us is linked to Wangnan's? And speaking of which, one of the most important plots concerning the main plot is that of the princes of the red light district. Why are they the greatest shame of Jihad and the 10 great families? Who are the other princes? How many of them are there? Who is Karaka's brother? What are their backgrounds? What are their goals? Who is the prince who gave Rachel all the information she knows? Is it the fucking captain who seems to be doing the mastermind here? And speaking of plot essentials, in order to get to the 135th floor, you're going to have to get not only all the rings from the princes of the red light district, but also all 13 months. This means that you will have to take them by force from the princesses of Jihad who own them, Masheni for the yellow May, and for the silver January, Hajifirioni and her red October, and especially Adori and her golden November. It will also be necessary to find Alfid Jihad, the missing princess holding the luminous June, according to the non-canon lore. One can also imagine that another missing princess, according to the non-canon lore, the very first princess of Jihad, Arieh Horn, will have a role to play. Also, since Enna Jihad has been sealed with her colorless December, we may have an arc where the goal is to go and free her. This would be very interesting for Bam in the end, since she is extremely powerful and seems to be against Jihad, and maybe we will finally have the fight between Adori and Enna Jihad. There are also 3 weapons of the 13 months that don't belong to anyone and whose location is unknown: the White February, the Dark September, and the Rainbow Undecember. In any case, since the Black March is in possession of Bam and the Indigo July and the Blue August are in possession of Garam, we can consider these 3 weapons as secure. As for the Green April, it is still in Yuri's possession, but we don't know if it will stay that way. Everything will depend on its fate in the future. Finally, concerning these 13 months, we know that they are waiting for their master. But who is it? And also, what is the origin of the women present inside these weapons? For all this, I refer you to the video on the princesses of Jihad. Then, Bam will also have to find the other 2 remaining fragments of the thorn and master them. This seems to be an absolute necessity if he wants to defeat Jihad. Then, there are still many mysteries concerning characters that seem to be rather important. First, what is the identity of this famous Prince of Jihad? The one who is supposed to pass the ultimate test of the tower, according to the man who talks to Gustang through the radio. Or the identity of Akryung. We know that he is linked to Hedon since the latter lent him to Rachel in a way that he seems to be human, but especially that he uses the Shinwonryu, a technique supposed to be used only by irregulars. And besides, what is the purpose of Hedon? What is he hiding? Why did he cooperate with the FUG to make people believe that Bam is dead? What is his plan? Why, according to the non-canon law, is he looking for Enryu with greed? Since the administrator of the 2nd floor does not seem to be neutral either, do the floor administrators have a purpose? If so, what? Are they all of the same opinion, or do they have different goals? And since we were talking about Enryu, there is also a lot of mystery surrounding him. Why didn't he go kill Jihad himself? Where is he? What is he doing? In any case, according to SIU, he will only reappear in the last part of the story. What will he do then? What will be his role? And we can also extend these questions to the famous god of the outside, of which Enryu is only the messenger. What is his goal? Is he an Exis? We can also wonder if we will have a flashback on him. If we will know what he did before entering the tower with his 12 companions, if we will have the chance to see his ascent of the tower, this famous great journey. Perhaps we will also learn more about the people who accompanied him on this journey, such as Quadrado, the former holder of the Kranos ignition weapon. And in general, there is surely a lot more to develop about the history of the tower. I refer you to my video on the history of the tower. Also, you have to think that Bam and his companions will have to climb the tower to the 134th floor to become ranker. We are currently on the 50th floor with the Nest Arc, and Bam has only gone to the 52nd floor at its maximum, so he's not even halfway up the tower. However, if Tower of God has made us understand anything, it is that climbing the floors is secondary to the plot. We can very well spend a long time on a floor, as we are doing now with Season 3, where we stagnate between floors 50 and 52 for more than 70 chapters, as well as we can skip a lot of them by making ellipses, as with floors 3 to 19 which have been completely eclipsed. Finally, there is the main plot linking most of the plots I just mentioned. Defeat Jihad, that is, facing the 10 great families, or at least some of them, facing all of Jihad's army, his 5 corps of which only 2 are known at the moment, as well as his commander-in-chief, Adori Jihad, facing the three lords, Flux, Moloch 1 PGR, and Juchun, facing a lot of rankers and high rankers, but most of all, facing Jahad himself. You only have to see my video about the most powerful beings in the tower and the top 100 to understand how impossible this task seems. And you can also check out my video on Jahad's empire to better understand the whole hierarchy and power of the empire. However, there is still a plot that encompasses all the plots in this video, the plot that is the very basis of Tower of God, reaching the top of the tower. The real top, not the 134th floor. In the end, defeating Jahad is only a condition to continue the ascent, to reach the 135th floor, and the following ones if there are any. And we can just wonder how many floors there are left. The 135th may very well be the last one, as there could be 10, 20 or 375203, there is no way to know. Finally, this is where we get the answer to the ultimate question of Tower of God. What's at the top of the tower? How will the whole story end? And it's still not over. Since Tower of God is only one story in the main plot of a larger story in a universe called Talsit User Story, one may wonder what other stories precede Tower of God. What stories are behind the Exis like Phantominum, the King of National Salvation, Oedipus, or the Conqueror King? Will he redo the stories he already started, like Give My Earth Back, Talsit User Story, not to be confused with the name of the universe Talsit User Story, Carnival, Comic or Peer-to-Peer? How was the tower created? By whom or what? For what purpose? What impact will Tower of God have on Talsit User Story? And what impact will Talsit User Story have on Tower of God? Finally, knowing that according to SIU, the story of Tower of God takes place chronologically towards the end of the main plot of Talsit User Story, will we ever see the end of this huge story? The conclusion of the whole universe of Talsit User Story? SIU's project is certainly one of the most ambitious in the history of the ninth art. The universe he created and the complexity of its plot is simply dizzying. And since SIU himself said that he had started to imagine his universe since elementary school, it is really a life's work, a work that, even if it does not have the recognition it deserves today, will eventually mark the history of its medium. This video will have given you a glimpse of this immensity, which is only the tip of the iceberg since we are currently only on the 50th floor at the Ark of the Nest. No doubt there will be many more plots to come in addition to the one I just mentioned. I may have lost you under a flow of information, and you may come out of this video with more questions than answers. But one thing is for sure, if you want to know the answers to these questions, you just have to climb up. Because whether it's those answers or your heart's desire, you'll find it all up there at the top of the Tower of God.